What's up, guys? It's McNulty here. So we are back again, and we are going to be diving into the mysteries of the deep now, because we do have another hero in the portal. In fact, we've got two brand new heroes, so we're going to try and do both of these in this one quick video. I like to break things up sometimes. So let's have a little look at Spartoi. He is our newest hero from the Untold Tales summon, and as you can see, he's bucking the mermaid theme a little bit. He's decided that he is some kind of octopus. So that is pretty interesting. I mean, we've had Ultrox. Ultrox is an octopus as well. But this guy looks like an absolute monster. Just check him out. The art on this hero is pretty cool. I'll say that much. Even if he turns out to be a terrible hero, I do like the art. So Spartoi, he's going to be our newest 5-star hero from the Untold Tales summon. Right away, it's a bit unfortunate, but he is of the barbarian class, which is just not my favorite. It's not the greatest class. They really need to do something about the barbarian class. It's pretty terrible. He is of the Nightmares of Atlantis family. As you can see, he just looks like something that would invade into your nightmares and just give you horrible, horrible dreams for the rest of your life. He gets a bonus for 1 or 2 heroes, which is a chance to cast negative 10% mana generation for 3 turns on any enemy that deals special skill damage to him. It's a 50 or 75% chance. It's pretty good. But the second bonus, the passive, is where it's all at with this hero. It's a 50% chance to deal 80% damage to all enemies. That's a pretty high chance. And the caster to get an additional 19% mana generation for 2 turns. That is where it's at with the passives for these Nightmares family heroes. That is really, really good, especially if they do deal some damage. Now, in terms of Spartoi's stats, we'll switch the max power preview off so we can have a realistic idea of what's going on. And it's 998 on the team power. They're really trying to hold off on that 1,000 team power mark. Not for long, not for long. So his attack is at 974, a defense stat of 1065, which is pretty damn good, and 1672 on his health. So very good stats across the board. Again, one of the highest team powers that we've seen for any new heroes being released into the game. Now, his special skill is going to be called Overwhelming Raid, and he is running at the Changing Tides mana speed. So with this one, the mana speed alternates between fast and average every time he casts. The first cast here is going to be at fast speed and the second at average, and then he goes back to fast again, but he keeps casting the second part of his special. Okay, so what does he do? What is this Overwhelming Raid that we're thinking about? So he deals 240% damage to all enemies. All right, that's pretty decent for running at fast speed with nearly 1,000 attack stat. Plus he gets the additional passive, which means it's a 50% chance to deal an extra 80% damage to all enemies. So that is good right off the bat. He then summons a Naga Warrior Fiend for all enemies, and the Fiend damages its target with 75% attack every turn. That's a pretty high amount of attack for Fiend that's summoned to all enemies at fast speed. Now, the Naga Warrior Fiend absorbs healing, and it disappears after absorbing a healing amount equal to 40% of its target's max health. Now, again, this is a hero that I've seen has been buffed right upon release. I mean, if you look on the forum, at least I did this morning, the card still says 33% health. And I've seen that they've increased it to 40%. They've increased it even more on the second tide. So that is very interesting that they're buffing the heroes right upon the release. And I think that's a theme that we've seen quite a lot recently. But anyway, the fact that it absorbs 40% of its target's max health is very important. Because it means that you're not going to be able to get rid of those fiends just with a sort of standard heal. You really need a deep healer that heals for anything more than 40%. Okay, so at fast speed, that damage hit is pretty damn good. The Fiend is going to be pretty annoying, and that 75% attack from the Fiend every turn is good as well. The Fiend is not doing anything else, though. I know we've seen heroes with Fiends that do specific effects and that cast ailments on the heroes, and yes, they are a lot better than heroes like this, which just cast a Fiend, and that's all the Fiend does, is just a certain amount of attack every turn. But remember, you get the upfront damage, and you do get a pretty beefy Fiend, which is doing a decent amount of attack every turn. So that can finish heroes off. So just watch out for that one. The second tide for this hero, his damage is going to increase up to 320% damage to all enemies. That is a lot of damage. I mean, yes, it is at the second charge, so it's the second time you fire it off, and yes, it does take a while to get there, but the passive increased damage of 80% on top of that means it's 400% damage to all enemies. So that's going to be aligned with any kind of slow speed hero that's a massive damage dealer if you do get him to his second charge or second tide. He then summons the Naga Warrior Fiend again for all enemies, and the Fiend damages the target with 110% attack every turn. So that's more than a slash attack a turn, and that is a lot of damage for that Fiend. So you're going to want to get rid of them as quickly as possible. But then this Naga Warrior Fiend now, that's dealing 110% damage, now absorbs healing, and it disappears after absorbing a healing amount equal to 50% of its target's maxed health. So there are not a huge amount of healers that are going to give you a whole team heal for more than 50%. I mean, I can think of a couple like Cleopatra, like the Tomb costume for Vivica. There's a few others, but not a great amount of healers that are going to give you over 50%. So you're going to be stuck with that slash attack for at least a turn. If you have a healer ready to go, you're going to need to charge a second healer to be able to get rid of that Fiend, and it's going to be slash attack in every single hero for 110% damage every turn. So that is a lot of damage. So I think that this guy is, well, it seems like the Fiend should be doing something else. I don't think you could have this with this hero, because he would just be too overpowered if the Fiend was doing anything other than just being a Fiend, because it's a beefy ass Fiend and it's a lot of damage. So I think this guy as a damage dealer is going to be absolutely insane. He's going to be a wrecker of teams. So you want to take this guy out as quickly as possible. And if you do see him on a defensive team and you're going up against him, make sure that you bring a lot of healing, because you're going to need it. You are definitely going to need it. There's nothing against max health reduction, so that could be a pretty good counter for him, increasing the health of your heroes before he fires off. And also there's no bypass or anything like that. He just gets the bleed damage from the horrible barbarian class, but then that means that counterattack heroes again are going to work extremely well against him. A lot of the new heroes, counterattack heroes, are a real go-to for me at the moment, because they do as much damage, if not more in some cases, than what you're taking. So beef up your counterattack heroes. That's my advice. Second limit break heroes like Asmia, for example, and other heroes that do counterattack, especially ones that do damage reduction as well. I know Cyprian's sort of minions have been squashed a little bit, but they're still very, very effective against these monsters that we are seeing released. So if you do manage to grab Spartoi, I think you're onto something. I think he's an excellent hero. There are counters for him, though. That's all I'm saying. He's featured alongside Geller. So Geller is he's an interesting hero. I mean, he's a good sniper, and he does do a lot of damage, but I haven't seen him used that well on either attack or defense. I think he can be dealt with pretty easily. And then Sito as well. Sito's a great hero as well. I always underestimate her when I'm going up against her, and she's one of the ugliest looking heroes in the game. Maybe this guy actually takes the cake. Spartoi's pretty damn ugly, but yeah, Sito's definitely a close second. So yeah, that is it for what we've got in the Untold Tales summon. And then we do have a new hero in the Underworld summon as well. It's not a new hero. He's been with us for a while, but it is kind of important because a lot of these Underworld costumes have just been revamping the stats and reworking the stats of the original hero. But with Akkorog, we find something a little bit different. So I'm just going to go over this really quickly. So Akkorog it's always been kind of a random hero. I mean, he is running at fast speed, which is great. And initially, when he came out, his damage was quite high. But now it's not that great. And what we can see is that they've done a little bit of a revamp with the passives and things like that. So the old version of Akkorog, in case you didn't know, rearranges the enemy positions randomly, which doesn't really have that much of an impact if you're on offense. Maybe in some cases, but not really. And then he dealt 280% damage to the target and nearby. Now, obviously, his stats are a bit dated now, so the costume bonuses are going to help out with the amount of attack dealt. And then he gets the passive, which is an increased special skill power, which also helps to increase that initial damage. And that's why it felt so hard when he was initially released. But the randomness of the redistribution of enemies meant that it was very tricky, and sometimes he only ended up hitting 2 heroes and things like that. Now, that has not disappeared from the new hero, and he has got a football, so he's into American football, it looks like. So that's interesting. But yeah, his new special, still running at fast speed, and he rearranges the enemy positions randomly. He now deals 260% damage to the target and nearby enemies, and he still gets the increase of 30% on the power, so it is a drop off of 20% in the damage. But what does happen is that he gets a chance, which is a pretty high chance actually, 45% chance to dodge special skills for the following 3 turns, and each dodge that he does gives him an increased defense, so it makes him harder to kill. Now, it is a bit selfish, which I'm not a huge fan of, because he doesn't give anything to any other members on the team, but it does make him more survivable, it does make him more difficult to kill, and as a result, I do think that it makes him a more usable hero. Unfortunately, the team power is not quite up there with where he needs to be in order to be super competitive, but it's better than what we've seen them try with a lot of the new costumes. At least we've got an additional effect on here, which makes him a bit better. This also is the secondary passive, so it's an increased damage against boosted health. So after he casts his special skill, all allies deal 70% increased normal attack and special skill damage against targets with boosted health for the following 4 turns. Now, that passive makes him a unique hero amongst all of the other heroes that we've seen, because that's the first time that we've seen a passive like that, and it is really effective. So I mean, just to go over that again, after he casts his special skill, all of the allies deal 70% increased normal attack and special skill damage. So if you fire off another hero's special skill against a target that has boosted health, so let me just make sure that make sure that I'm reading this right. Against targets with boosted health, he is going to hit 70% harder, and so are they. So is everybody else on your team. So is every single tile that you drop into that opposite team for the following 4 turns against any boosted health. So that's a really good and effective way to be able to deal with boosted health if you don't necessarily need that max health reduction on your team. So I do like that passive. It's very interesting, and it's the first time we've seen that, so just thought I'd mention it. Overall, I think Akkorog has suddenly become an insanely good hero? No. I still think that he has quite a few limitations, but what I would say is that if you do have him already and you pull this costume, it's an absolute no-brainer to level it, and I'd be very interested to see if we see that kind of passive with other heroes, which I love it. I think it's insane. In fact, just worth going over, we've got the passives here, which have been included for X-Null, and let's see, Congolac's not got a costume yet, but I'm assuming this theme is now going to carry through with the Underworld heroes. So let's just have a little look at a couple, if we can get to them. Sorry, guys. Where's the 5 stars at, man? Okay, so yeah, we got these secondary passives for a lot of them now. So those are new, and those are actually really, really useful. So it's worth going over those. So X-Null is an absolutely brilliant hero to be featured in here as well. I do like this costume for X-Null. I think he just looks super cool. But then you still get that increase, let's just see, the small amount of mana over 4 turns. I probably still use the original costume just because he works really well with Ludwig, but I do like that. So when the character casts the special skill, they boost the health of all their allies by 10%. That second passive that's been added makes these heroes a lot more usable. And some other new costumes in here as well, which is pretty decent. So guys, in summary, yes, I do like Akkorog now. I never thought I'd say that, but I think he's pretty usable. This hero is just a beast and a monster, and I would love to get my hands on him as well. So congrats if you do pull him from the Untold Tales. And Gladius is a pretty decent hero of the month. So even if you do drop a few pulls and you don't come away with anybody special, if you do get a copy of Gladius, he's going to be a great hero for you guys to level as well. So I wish you guys all of the best of luck in your summons. Please do drop us a like and subscribe to the channel. Please let me know what you think of Spartoi. Let me know your thoughts on these new heroes. I'd be very interested to hear your comments. I will respond. I'll do my best to respond, always do. And until the next time, I will see you all again in the next video. Bye for now, guys.